Okay, imagine this. You're in the thick of it, the fog of war. Everything is changing by the second, comms are down, and lives are on the line. The leader right next to you has to make a split-second decision. Now, 1,000 miles away, another leader is facing a totally different crisis, but the stakes are just as high, life or death. So how do you make sure they both act with the same core principles? How do you build trust and competence and character on a global scale? Well, the U.S. Army has a very specific answer. It's called Army Doctrine Publication 622. And it's basically the blueprint for leadership in one of the most complex organizations on the planet.
This quote from General MacArthur, it just cuts right to the heart of why this all matters so much. See, military leadership isn't some corporate retreat with trust falls and motivational posters. It is about guiding human beings through almost unimaginable stress and danger. In that kind of environment, a shared understanding of what it means to lead isn't just a nice to have. It is absolutely essential for survival. It's the common language that can turn complete chaos into coordinated, effective action.
So here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we'll look at the core problem that a leadership doctrine actually solves. Then, we'll introduce the Army's playbook for it. After that, we'll break down this really powerful model of being a leader versus doing leadership. And finally, we'll show how these principles apply to pretty much everyone, whether you wear a uniform or not.
All right, so let's start with that huge, fundamental challenge. How do you forge competent, trustworthy leaders, not by the dozen, but by the tens of thousands? How do you create that consistency in an organization where failure can have absolutely catastrophic consequences? This is the core problem the Army's leadership doctrine was designed to solve.
Think about it like this. Imagine a professional football team where every single player has their own personal playbook. The quarterback calls a pass, but the receiver runs a slant, and the offensive line is blocking for a run play. The result? It's just chaos, total failure. Without a common framework, every leader would be forced to rely only on their own personality and instincts. And that leads to confusion, conflicting orders, and a total breakdown in trust. A shared doctrine acts as a kind of compass for every leader, making sure everyone is navigating by the same North Star. It's a lifeline.
So, if that's the problem, the Army's solution is this document, Army Doctrine Publication 6-22. This is it. This is the official playbook. It's the single source that defines what the Army expects from every single one of its leaders. From a brand new corporal leading a small fire team, all the way up to a 4-star general commanding an entire theater of war.
So, formally, ADP 622 establishes the foundations of Army leadership. But what does that really mean? It means this isn't just some rule book. It's the Army's collective, time-tested wisdom on how to influence people by giving them purpose, direction, and motivation. It's about building leaders who can get the mission done, sure, but just as importantly, leaders who improve the organization for the long haul. And you'll notice it applies to Army civilians, too. This is a total force philosophy.
The crucial point here is that this whole document is about creating a common language. It makes sure that a leader from an airborne unit in North Carolina and, say, a logistics officer in Germany understand leadership in the exact same way. It forges a shared professional identity that's built on the bedrock of the Army ethic. But maybe most importantly, it unifies action. It ensures a commander's intent at the very top can be executed with consistency all the way down the chain of command, because everyone is working from the same sheet of music.
Okay, let's get into the model itself, because it's actually incredibly elegant. The Army breaks leadership down into two fundamental parts. The first part is all about who a leader is on the inside. This is the be and know section, and it covers a leader's core attributes. This isn't about what you do, it's about who you are. This simple table shows you the entire model at a glance. On the left, you've got attributes. That's what a leader is. This is their inner foundation, made up of character, presence, and intellect. Then on the right, you have competencies. That's what a leader does. These are the actions. They lead, they develop, and they achieve. The key here is that you really can't have one without the other. That inner foundation of your attributes supports every single external action you take as a leader. A weak foundation means the whole structure just collapses under pressure.
Now, diving a little deeper into those attributes, we see three categories. Character is your moral and ethical foundation. You know, living the Army values, having empathy for your soldiers, embodying that warrior ethos. Presence is all about how you carry yourself, your professional bearing, your physical and mental fitness, your confidence, and your resilience when you face setbacks. And intellect, well, that's your mental horsepower, the agility to think on your feet, make sound judgments under pressure, the ability to innovate, and the expertise to know your job inside and out. And of all of those attributes, character is the absolute bedrock. I mean, presence and intellect are vital, but without a foundation of integrity, trust is impossible. Character is what ensures a leader makes the right decision legally and morally, even when, and especially when, it's the harder choice. It is the non-negotiable core. This is just a brilliant illustration of character under the most extreme pressure imaginable. General Wainwright was the highest-ranking American prisoner of war in World War II. For 3 years, he suffered starvation, abuse, and humiliation from his captors, but he never broke faith. He remained the senior officer, embodying loyalty and resolve for all his fellow prisoners who were looking to him for strength. That is character in its purest, most powerful form. Okay, now let's move to the other side of that model and see how this all builds. If attributes are who you are, then competencies are what you do. This is leadership in motion. The skills and the actions that translate that internal character into external results. The competencies are also broken into 3 main categories. Leads is the direct act of influencing others, communicating, building trust, setting the example. Develops is about building the organization for the future. A great leader doesn't just use their talent, they create more of it. They improve their subordinates, they foster a positive environment, and they're committed to their own self-improvement. And finally, achieves. This is the bottom line. Getting results. A leader can have all the character in the world, but if they can't execute and accomplish the mission, they fail.
A key concept that kind of bridges a leader's internal character with their external actions is personal courage. And it's so critical to understand this isn't just about physical bravery in a firefight. It's also about moral courage, the willingness to stand up for what's right, to speak truth to power, or to take responsibility for a failure, even when it carries personal risk.
There is perhaps no greater or more difficult example of moral courage than Warrant Officer Hugh Thompson at My Lai. He witnessed a horrific war crime being committed by his own side, and he made the choice to intervene, landing his helicopter and placing himself and his crew between American soldiers and unarmed civilians to stop the killing. That is an act of almost unimaginable moral courage, choosing to do what was right over what was easy.
One of the most critical competencies is, of course, leading by example. This is the most powerful form of influence, period, because actions will always speak louder than words. A leader can't just talk about standards and values. They have to be the living embodiment of them. Soldiers will follow a leader who shares their hardships, who lives by the code they preach, and who demonstrates unwavering competence when it matters most.
And the story of Master Sergeant Roy Benavides, it's the stuff of legend. He voluntarily put himself into a 6-hour firefight to save a surrounded Special Forces team, armed at first with only a knife. He was wounded dozens of times but just refused to be stopped, directing airstrikes, giving aid, and dragging his comrades to safety. His sheer determination and selflessness inspired everyone on that battlefield. His actions were the ultimate example, and his humble response, "That's duty," it just says it all.
So, we've explored the model, we've seen some incredibly powerful examples. But the crucial point is, why does an Army document from 2012 matter to those of us outside the military? How does any of this apply to a corporate office, a tech startup, or even a local sports team?
Well, ADP 622 itself makes a critical distinction that's valuable for any organization: the difference between management and leadership. Management is about handling complexity. It's the processes, the budgets, the org charts that keep things running smoothly. Leadership, on the other hand, is about dealing with change. It's about providing a vision, inspiring people, and motivating them to move in a new direction. A good manager makes sure the train runs on time. A good leader decides which track the train should be on and convinces everyone to get on board. You need both, but this doctrine is a masterclass in the leadership half of that equation.
Ultimately, what this framework gives us is a time-tested model for human development. It's a system designed to build people who have strong moral fiber, which is character, people who have the skills to excel at their job, which is competence, and people who are dedicated to a purpose larger than themselves, which is commitment. Those 3 C's, character, competence, and commitment, those are the goals of any effective leadership system in any field.
In the end, a doctrine like ADP 622 can provide the map, the compass, and the playbook. It can show you the path to becoming an effective leader, but it can't walk that path for you. Leadership at its very core is a choice. It's a choice you make every single day in how you interact with people, how you hold yourself to a standard, and how you act when things get difficult. The doctrine provides the framework, but the character has to come from within. So the only question left is the one you have to answer for yourself. What choice will you make? If you want to dive deeper into more frameworks for success just like this one, make sure to subscribe for more.